A week?
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
a while.
I'm like, where's that?
You're the one that even told me to come back here and check.
But then even,
All right, welcome to those of you joining us virtually. Give us just a moment. We're running a tad behind schedule and we're getting technology set up. So just bear with us a moment. Thank you. Just a few more minutes, guys. Again, sorry for the delay. We are getting there though. Just bear with us. Okay, guys, we're still getting some technology to work for us because that's how it goes sometimes. You want it to work, it's worked all the way up till right now, and then it decides it wants to be finicky. So just a moment on that while we are waiting to get that going so that you can see all of us here at the CES main office in the boardroom. we can go ahead and get started. I want to share with you guys the Local Workforce Innovation Area 23 website. If you go to lwa23.net, and then if you go to the About Us tab, hover over LWIA 23, and then go down to Regional Plan, it brings you to our Regional Plan page. Yay! So that's where we are now. You should be able to see that on your screen. And if you scroll down that page, you can see our current regional plan. And then the second half of that page is the resources for regional planning. So there's a ton of information here. What is most important right now are the meeting agendas and summaries. I did not get the agenda attached to the calendar item yesterday, but it is available on our website. So I will pull that up so you can check out the agenda. So now you should see our agenda. Can you nod or give a thumbs up if you're seeing that on your screen? Awesome, thank you. So today we're gonna we're gonna look at our regional plan guide and kind of do a quick recap of our kickoff meetings where we talked about some of the data in chapter 1 of our planning guide, which is a analysis of the workforce system in our area. And then we're going to get into chapter 3 of our regional plan guide, which is vision, goals, and implementation strategies. I do have a 2-hour window blocked off today, but usually if history proves to repeat itself, it will only take maybe an hour and a half. An hour was just not quite enough time last planning cycle, but 2 hours was more than enough. Awesome. Yes, so one moment, I'm going to mute and we're going to switch speakers. One sec. I should be muted. Sebs needs to be, are you unmuted? Okay. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? All right, yay, cool. So I am going to turn off my camera. You don't need to see me. You can see me on the big camera. There, I'm over here. Hi, guys. All right, so on your screen, you should still see that. Yeah, you can see it. Now I can see what you're seeing. There is our agenda. We're going to do a quick recap of our kickoff meeting, and then we'll jump into chapter 3. So let me go back. Da, 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 da. And another resource that you are going to use quite a bit during this whole planning process is no, it's right here. It's the updated planning guide. There we go. Yes, so when I talk about chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, that is not abundantly clear in our current plan, the 2020 through 24 plan, but it is broken down much more clearly in this regional planning guide. So if you want to have that open on a separate tab and following along, you are welcome to, but this is the guiding document that helps us create our regional plan. Stop sharing just one moment, and I'm going to switch to presentation from our kickoff meeting, and we'll kind of go through it quickly.
Present. Present. Well, it's not gonna make it big and pretty like normal presentation, so we'll just rock with what we got. Maybe it would help if I did that. Yay, okay, there we go. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and your New Year's off to a good start. Mine's pretty good, but there's some kinks. I'm getting back in the swing of things, obviously. All right, so today our purpose is to look back at that workforce analysis, our chapter 1, and what we discussed with our kickoff meeting, and then get into chapter 3, as I said a little bit ago. So for those of you who did not attend our kickoff meeting, you maybe are a little new, you haven't been to any of our business service team meetings or board meeting or joined any of our committees, just a quick update that we are the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act grant administrators. So we say WIOA or WIOA. WIOA is landmark legislation that's designed to strengthen and improve our nation's public workforce system and help get Americans, including youth and those with significant barriers to employment, into high quality jobs and careers and help employers hire and retain skilled workers. That WIOA Act has put into play the fact that we need to have a local workforce development board for each local workforce innovation area, and that each of those boards, each of those LWIAs, local workforce innovation area, does have to come up with a regional and local plan that aligns with the state unified plan and convenes all of the workforce development partners. So that is not just us as workforce development WIOA administrators, but that is also economic development, that's education and career training, that's community-based organizations, business leaders and industry, local employers, and other government agencies that are dedicated to upskilling and getting people back into the workforce or into the workforce with the appropriate skills. I think another slide might go into partners later, but it's really everybody is a part. So when I talk about LWIA 23 at our local workforce innovation area, I'm talking about LWIA 23 as a geographic location, these 13 counties you see on your screen, Moultrie County over to Edgar, down to Lawrence County, back over to Marion, just about everything in between. That's about 6,250-ish square miles. It's a massive region, bigger than the state of Connecticut. So we have a lot of partners all spread out through the region. When I say I'm from LWIA 23 or I represent LWIA 23, I also mean that as I am the representative to the local workforce innovation forward. So as an entity, we call ourselves LWIA 23, but also as a geographic location, you'll hear about us as LWIA 23 and other LWIAs across the state. Yes. So looking at our partners, or what we refer to as workforce development system or workforce ecosystem, like I said, we are comprised of just about anybody with a stake in the game when it comes to having a strong economy. So that's the WIOA service provider, our adult education partners, Department of Employment Services, Department of Rehabilitation Services, economic development orgs, career and technical education, employers, labor unions, Department on Aging, Perkins, CFPG, grant recipients or grant administrators, TANF, and more. Everybody, we're all partners. So when looking at our plan for 2024 to 2028, we refer back to what our plan was, the current plan that we're on, the 2020 to 2024 plan. And chapter 1 is a workforce analysis. So looking at all of the data, demographics, and projections for our local workforce innovation area. Based on the new data, and those data packets can be found at that LWA23.net/regional-plan website, we have come to the conclusion that the target industries that we had in our previous plan, manufacturing, construction and building, healthcare and social assistance, education and transportation, distribution and logistics, will continue to be our target industries for this new plan. What that means What that means is not that we're restricting any of our services or we're asking you to restrict your services to those target industries. It's just that those are noted industries that are projected or poised to have significant growth or significant impact on the quality of life in this region. Now, since this plan is not just us WIOA people saying this is what we're going to do for our WIOA Title I dollars or what we're going to focus on, we need input from our partners. So looking at these target industries and looking at these employment needs that have come from our discussions with local employers, from data, from information, from online help wanted ads, all of that information comes together. This is what we've come with it, and this is our interpretation of it, what we have in our plan, and we want your input on how well does that align with your current agency or organization strategic plan? How is that vastly different? What input do any of our partners joining us either here in person or virtually have to add about your own workforce analysis for the region? What are you seeing out there? I can see that there's chat.
Does it need to be?
Yeah. Thank you. Feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or pop something into the chat. It looks like we have a standard chat message. Courtney, can that just be brought over here, or does it have to? I appreciate that.
I will say that we have had a lot of students that are EMT and paramedic asking for Perkins support. They had an open house and recently went to a special admission program in order to make sure that the applicants have the skills that they need to be successful in the program. So we are seeing a demand definitely for the EMTs and paramedics. I'll also say that the early childhood care and education is a big one. We continue to have a shortage as far as daycare and preschool options. Talking with the director of EASY, I know even just having a substitute available to help with their project help classrooms is a big deal. So I know with Perkins, we're really trying especially to assist the students that are in those healthcare industries, but also the early childhood care and education.
Awesome, thank you. So we have EMT and paramedics there on that in-demand occupation list. And we have teacher assistants, but we don't I don't see that we have early childhood education providers. So what I will do using that information is let me go back to some of our data sources and see if that's something we should consider putting into our in-demand occupations. While I'm sure that's on one of our lists somewhere, if there's such a high need for that, that should make its way into our regional plan. So I definitely want to explore that further. Risa, looks like you have your hand raised. You can unmute yourself.
Good morning. Hey, I would echo the thoughts on early childhood. We have a nonprofit here and we are paying for dual credit courses through Lincoln Trail College and providing textbooks to build the staff for the child care program. So that's a dire need. You can build the buildings, but if you don't have the educated staff, you won't get it across the finish line. Another dire need that we have is also for electricians and plumbers. When you look under construction, that's also a need there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Great information to have. Yes. Again, with the same thing, construction, the plumbers and electricians. We'll look at that data closer, and I'll post that to that LWA23.net/regional-plan. I'll post that, whatever data I pull, it will be included there for you to look at. Anytime you just want to peruse and look at the data we're using to inform our plan. The employment needs that are listed on there are more of the soft skills, we will say, or the employability skills. I did not list the hard skills because that's going to be very dependent for each occupation. But if there's anything that sticks out to you as missing, or you just want to throw your support behind any of those, feel free to.
Yeah, I think the employment needs definitely the soft skills are there, and that goes across the board. I concur there, even with your targeted industries. Just looking at the overall employment numbers or the mass amount of employers throughout the region. Manufacturing, healthcare is a huge employer for us. Manufacturing industry as a whole. I see you do have transportation, distribution, and logistics on that. Kind of lump those two in the industry as a whole. Local education and just local government as a whole too. Local government is quite a large employer for the region. But would second childcare. Childcare definitely a big need and what helps support the rest of the industries as well. And maybe it might not be showing up on the targeted industries through the data just because of how large the other employment numbers are. It might be a little outlier, but something that's definitely needed. They have other constraints to the size of the building to be able to be a staff that they would need to grow. There's a need for additional childcare slots, but physically don't have the availability, kind of what Risa had noted, but then also with the restrictions in that industry and the credentials that they have to get, it's a longer term to grow that.
So fun fact is childcare kind of falls into education and it falls under healthcare as well.
Yeah.
So I believe it's like daycare workers, those occupations tend to fall into that healthcare and social assistance industry or sector. And then early childhood educator, and then K through 12, of course, then falls into education. So I think that was a motivating factor of including both of those two industries, even in our previous cycle of regional planning, because there's a lot of different jobs or businesses or even industries that cross into multiple sectors. And it depends on if we're zooming out and looking big picture versus zooming in. But childcare has been such a massive issue for so long, and then just really exacerbated by the pandemic.
Yes.
That we would be gravely misguided if we did not include that into our regional plan, for sure. I mean, you're in front of me in your economic development, so I'm going to attack you for that.
Yeah.
With your economic development plans, do you address the same kind of like goals of supporting certain target industries, or is it more of just broadly?
What do we support for the community? Well, looking at just Effingham County, it's kind of a divide and conquer, if you will. Look at your largest employers, look at who has the largest economic impact, and you've identified those targeted industries up there that most certainly just adhering to them, trying to overcome hurdles, encourage growth. Hopefully that growth results in additional employment opportunities. A large component of that is workforce development. So taking everything that we're doing here, help articulate that to the employers, let them know what's available, bring you guys in to have those one-on-one discussions and work with them and getting that training assistance and working with them to continue to invest in the workforce. Childcare is a huge component for us here in Effingham County, and I know the surrounding communities as well, and trying to not only retain what we had, as you had noted, the industry had been on a downward trajectory. The pandemic was, gasoline on the fire there. We had to stop the bleeding. We're trying to reset that industry and to grow the number of available slots, and definitely understand the constraints to be able to grow that industry. But then also housing is a huge component too, and then recognition of construction, building, and just trades as a whole definitely tie into that. So goals and objectives for us: workforce, childcare, housing, and just adhering to our existing employers through a business retention expansion. We always have an eye out to try to recruit something in, but try to do kind of a hybrid method where it's trying to recruit something in that's supportive of what our existing industry is, and taking advantage of what that upstream or downstream of their value chains are.
Got it, okay. That makes me feel a little bit better that we're not vastly different than what you're
No.
seeing from the economic development perspective.
I can't speak for everybody, but I do.
And we got 13 whole counties.
Yeah, I oversee a 6-county regional collaboration. We've got similar objectives that we're working towards. Everybody's a little unique in their own communities, but everybody's also adhering to the same issues, the same problems. We're trying to overcome those things.
So looking at these in-demand occupations, these are limited to the occupations that need special licensure or associate degree or beyond.
Mhm.
So I ran an in-demand occupations, just in general, what occupations are projected to grow in the next 10 years, not restricted by licensure or anything. And I got a few different occupations that could be added to this. One that sticks out, just because you brought up housing, is real estate. That real estate brokers or just real estate workers are expected to see some growth in those occupations in the next 10 years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the housing market's cyclical by all means, and we definitely had a spike over the pandemic, and it's still high now. And a lot of that is just supply and demand. I think there was a lot of people that did rush to that industry, that they probably had some significant growth. We're probably going to see a decline of that, but it's going to be cyclical what the market as a whole does, which the housing side of it's going to be delayed from what we see from like a capital standpoint from interest rates, and because it's a long-term equation versus short-term. Would note in-demand occupations, I thought we'd see up there operators or maintenance, but then you had noted those that need a certain type of a further education, and not always the case with an operator or maintenance, maybe more of a specific certification for them to be able to operate. But as machinery and equipment continues to evolve, I mean, they do need additional education as well. But
For sure.
just supporting the majority of those industries, especially in the manufacturing industries.
I would agree, and I think that was pointed out one of our kickoff sessions. Those in-demand occupations don't necessarily reflect all of those target industries, and that's what kind of prompted me to look at some additional data. Because we are provided with wonderful data packets and wonderful regional profiles from our partners at IDS. We have Eric McKella is our area or regional data analyst, and looks at all of this information and then provides it to us. But the onus is on us to look and dig where we need to dig a little deeper and get a different perspective. So just last night, running some additional reports made me realize, like, yeah, I think there's room for some other in-demand occupations could be added to the.
Well, you've got Leah on there down in Salem, you got Carlos over in Mattoon, you got Risa and Robinson, or even Robert, NAL. You guys have any input? Do you concur with what I was talking about our area here in Effingham County? If it mirrors over to what you guys are looking at or doing in your respectable industries or your respectable communities? Robert, would you concur with operators and maintenance?
Feel free to use the chat. I am kind of keeping an eye on it, or you can unmute yourself.
I completely agree with you. Definitely at an operator level, we do struggle to get people in the door, fighting turnover at the same time. So it's kind of that revolving door. So definitely the operator level is a huge need, as well as you discussed maintenance. And that's always a big push for NAL. We have apprenticeship programs we're utilizing to help close those gaps. But still the gap's not completely closed yet.
Looks like we got agreements from Risa and Leah. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everyone. Carlos Ortega here. Can you hear me?
Hello, Carlos. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
I like the targeted industries in the construction and building. I think that's something that we should account for due to the lack of housing, at least within our area, and affordable housing at that, or at least just somewhat like workforce housing. So bringing more people into that trade or that skill set, I think is highly beneficial. So although it's not in demand occupations, I think it is good for the targeted industry.
I like it, yes, and if I had a better memory of even just what I looked at last night, I could tell you for sure if there was something from that sector, and I feel like there was. So not requiring any licensure that could be done with maybe an apprenticeship, maybe with just some on-the-job experience. Those occupations were not included in this in-demand occupation, and there's room for them. So I will definitely cross-reference that and add some more to it for our news cycle.
Maybe there's a higher arching code for those occupation codes that cover trades as a whole. That might be-
There's a ton of them,
There's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'd say that in-demand occupations could significantly grow based on our targeted
Mhm.
industries, and just to double check that if child care is in there for overlapping for the other ones that's already in the targeted industry.
I do recall specifically teachers in elementary and in career and technical education teachers fell into that
Well, I
as
see
well.
even teachers assistants in demand occupations, which could fall in that ECE as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
And then in addition to the targeted industries, I don't remember off of, I'm trying to think what that chart looked, that bubble chart that looked like with the maturing and the growing, just thinking professional services and that, the financial industry, banking as a whole is quite a large employer. Maybe not as significant as what you'll see for a size wise, as compared to construction and healthcare and manufacturing, but professional services.
I'm going to pull that up real quick, maybe. I should.
Look at you. That much stuff.
So that EDR7 data packet, if you click there, it should pull it up. And if we look at this graph that Courtney is referencing, that was very influential of this analysis because it does include projections. Da-da-da-da.
Yeah, so you have it on the leading side, but
Why is that so touchy? Okay, there we go.
in emerging, it's far right, but below one. In the ag sector, and I think a lot of that, I mean, agriculture is huge for a rural area, and we're most significantly rural. It's just you start getting the overlapping.
Yes, and a lot of our occupation data excludes the agriculture jobs. So while agriculture is massive and not something we ignore by any means, we don't necessarily have wonderful data to back that up. So we tend to focus on the other industries, but of course, if there's agriculture businesses that we don't say we're not going to support ag, that's for sure. They have a lot of support though as well. And we're very data driven. So if we don't have the data, that impacts our regional plan. And another thing that I want everyone to consider looking at this chart, healthcare and education, they look like they're slowing down. And yes, the projections over the next 10 years are that those sectors will lose some jobs. What is not clear if those jobs are lost because just people are leaving the industry to go to other industries, if they're leaving the region, or if the need is just less. I don't foresee that being the cause, but there's no specific reason why those projections are projecting a loss of jobs there. But we acknowledge the importance of those sectors to the quality of life in our area. So again, we're very data driven, but we also have to consider the whole picture, beyond the quantity, there we go, to the quality as well. So we need to focus on those healthcare and education sectors, even if they are not on the side of the graph that we would like to see them on. Maybe with support, they will be able to move and will be able to mitigate those projections of decrease in jobs. That's the idea, right?
Previously, there was quite a large discussion about leisure and hospitality in our very first kickoff,
Yes.
which would,
Eric gave a really good
I mean, he compared it to
explanation.
other markets in the Cook County, greater Northeast, where you see it as emerging and significant growth, but does believe that we'll continue to see investment here. Is that what it was? That's why it teeters on that line?
I think so, that there was so much growth post-pandemic that they're expecting for some of that growth to, again, the cycle would go reduce.
Yeah. Mature.
Yeah. But we also know that we have a lot of new industry in the leisure and hospitality sector coming to the region. So those projections, these data projections are based on 10-year historical data. I believe in this context, because of the pandemic, they did take that into consideration with whatever algorithm that they use, the formula that they come up with. But they don't necessarily have that local level information that we do. We know that there's a sports complex in development. We know that there's several retail stores and food service businesses coming to town with that. So while this isn't, it's good data, local level data will just take it to that next level of being more relevant to us and what our vision is for the next 4 years. Risa, is your hand still up from before, or you got a new hand up?
I have a new hand up. I just wanted to comment on the healthcare. I hold a quarterly HR roundtable with our local business and industry in December. Our hospital representatives were there, and they're experiencing employees leaving post-COVID, the industry, but also because we're a border county, regional hospital bought out union, and they are not able to compete with the packages. So I guess what I want to say is the smaller rural community hospitals are finding it more and more difficult to retain workers. We need the local hospital, but it's harder for them to compete for employees. And we're a border county, so that might be a little bit different dynamic.
Well, and I wonder if that might not be true in other sectors also. A smaller manufacturer may not be able to offer some of the same things that a larger manufacturing company could offer, or a smaller agriculture company. So that might be true for all the sectors.
So what I'm hearing is that maybe in our regional plan, we need to talk about developing strong sector partnerships and creating talent pipeline management collaboratives where those smaller players in that sector can band together to have a larger voice and influence on the talent in the region and bringing talent to the region, making sure that we have enough skilled talent. And we're working together to not steal talent away from each other, but to have enough to go over and to meet everyone's needs. That's going to come up in our chapter 3 discussion in just a few minutes. So I'm just foreshadowing, laying that out there for you guys. I'm going to go back to my slide deck because this just keeps me on track, because I will go off the rails pretty easily. So if there's any additional input on chapter 1, speak now and forever hold your peace. Or later on, get your thoughts together, write them out, put them on Post-it notes, text them to me, whatever. Feel free to share any epiphanies that come to you later this evening as you were just reliving this joyful, wonderful experience and that you just can't get enough of, right? So we will move on to chapter 3. So if you're following along in that regional plan guide, vision, goals, and implementation strategies. So this gets to the fun part. So Illinois came out with their unified state plan. So looking at the state as a whole, getting workforce partners at the state level together, they come out with their own vision, their own goals, strategies, etc. And we are supposed to align to those. So the Illinois Unified State Plan is that Illinois' workforce system will meet employers, job seekers, community members, where they are at, centering the customer experience in an interoperable, equitable, and accessible manner to ensure all customers achieve their goals. We will support employers by building diverse, quality career pathways and provide effective training, education, and economic opportunities for job seekers and communities to thrive. Then, to go with that vision statement, the goals that the state has laid out has been that we will develop a workforce development system that is an example of excellence in its approach to collaboration and customer service. We will develop a workforce development system that supports, informs, and enhances employers' talent strategies. And we will have a workforce development system that will use customer-centered and data-informed practices to improve the quality of the job seeker experience in pursuing fulfilling career pathways in a manner that is equitable and accessible. So the strategic elements that they will use for these goals include looking at skills gaps and bridging those gaps, looking at an economic analysis, looking at employers' employment needs, doing the entire workforce analysis, creating those visions, that vision statement and goals, and the strategies that go along with, right? So when you look at LWIA 23 and what we say our mission is, when we just go out and do presentations to our businesses, to public partners, to organizations, we say that our mission is to create a workforce talent pipeline, connecting people with sustainable employment through our training services. And we do this through the strategies of using and enhancing and encouraging work-based training, industry-recognized credential attainment, supporting disadvantaged individuals, building business and sector partnerships in collaboration with local education institutions. So when we look at our regional plan from 2020 to 2024, we put into that plan that our vision, which is slightly different from our mission, our vision in the plan says we will provide business-driven talent and data-driven solutions that integrate education, workforce, and economic development resources across systems to provide businesses, individuals, and communities with the opportunity to prosper and contribute to growing the regional and state economies. So same thing, just worded a little bit differently. But when we look at this strategic vision, we have to have some goals that will help us achieve that vision, right? So in our current plan, we talk about having services that are offered through our one-stop WorkNet Center and access sites. And then we talk about supportive services to those who are unemployed and underemployed. And that is very Title I heavy. I think we have other partners that offer additional services, yes, at the One-Stop WorkNet Center. But even beyond that, beyond our access sites, there are partners and there are strategies that are happening right now to support the workforce and the development. So that is what we want to hear about and what we want to talk about as we look at our goals. The goals that we have in our current plan are enhance active collaboration among partners, improve responsiveness to business community needs, develop continuous improvement strategies, expand work-based learning initiatives, and strengthen links between the one-stop delivery system and UI programs. Now, if you remember just a few slides ago, we looked at the state of Illinois goals, and these goals that we have right now are looking more like strategies or tactics to achieve some of those goals. So my team has kind of done some brainstorming right before we got here, and it seems to make more sense to us that we look at those 3 goals that the state has in their unified state plan, and we apply them to our region, to our local area. So instead of saying Illinois' workforce development system, our local development, our workforce development system. So the partners that are here on this call today, the partners that attend our consortium committee meetings, our business service team meetings, who are out there doing the work of workforce development, what do we need to create and set an example of excellence in our approach to collaboration and customer service? We should have the goal to inform and enhance employer talent strategies. We should have the goal to use customer-centered and data-informed practices to improve the quality of the job seeker experience and pursuing fulfilling career pathways in a manner that is equitable and accessible. Our partners who are online with us today, would you agree with that? That we change our goals to align closer to the state's goals and then focus on our strategies and tactics that were kind of already talked about in the previous cycle, or what are your thoughts on that? Do you have additional
Jamie,
goals?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Jamie, I agree 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we need to align with what the state goals are. But when we get into the objectives and strategies, really dive into that. I mean, listening beyond their goals, they didn't get in real deep into how they're going to accomplish those things, but definitely align with needs to be.
They did put out a draft of the state plan, and since I've printed it out and shared it on our website, it's been updated. So now that link doesn't work, so don't try it, and I can't find the newest draft, or at least I couldn't yesterday. But they do go a little bit more into their strategies. And I think that's where we have room to customize more for what will work for our area.
Yeah.
So would you like to look at the state's strategies, or do you think it would make more sense for us to look at the strategies that we had in our previous cycle and just update those from there?
I think I'd like to look at both, and everything has changed. I mean, we can use the word pandemic, or we can use a lot of different words, but we have changed. Our economic development has changed. Our educational delivery and model has changed. UI has changed. There are a lot of things that have happened within even small communities in our area. So looking at what we had planned on doing prior in our prior regional plan, but then also looking at what the state has. So I guess I'm kind of on the team of let's look at both.
That makes sense. I think there's going to be some good crossover from what we did previously, but absolutely there'll be some room for new strategies, new things going on in the area. And one thing that I don't think we did a wonderful job at in the previous cycle is explaining how we would measure the progress towards these goals, what the actual outcomes would be that we're looking to achieve, because even the states, we want to be excellent. Well, how do we measure excellence? How do we define it? And then how do we measure progress towards it? And that might be a rabbit hole discussion. It's at another point, or might make this discussion continue into next week's meeting, which is okay. But I don't have it to share on the screen. I will read out some of the strategies from the Illinois State Unified Plan. They're not their most recent draft. It may have changed a bit, which I'll be able to tell you guys later this week. But for that goal 1, which let me go back so you can see it on your screen. That goal 1 of having the workforce development system as an example of excellence in its approach to collaboration and customer service. Illinois state plan says their strategy to achieve that goal is to use a customer-centered approach to service delivery. Another strategy is to advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. Another strategy is to partner with other workforce and education systems in Illinois to enhance coordination and collaboration. The fourth strategy is for job seekers and employers who have a broader awareness of the workforce development system. And the fifth strategy is to enhance service delivery through supporting development to frontline workers. In our previous or current, I guess you would say, our previous cycle, our current plan, we talk about continuing to develop a more active collaboration among partners. So our goals from that previous cycle kind of aligned with more of these strategies, right? So we do have some tactics for collaboration. We have some tactics for improvement strategies for current practices, and strategies for strengthening linkages between one-stop delivery and unemployment insurance programs. So all for goal one, we do already have some strategies and tactics laid out. For goal two, workforce development system supports, informs, and enhances employers' talent strategies. The state's draft says that their first strategy will be to support, inform, and enhance employers' talent strategies. Their second strategy is the various partners in the workforce development system leverage their business services to provide more holistic support to employers. And their third strategy is to build out tools and practices that can help employers adopt a culture that promotes equity and accessibility. What we have from before that might align with that would be to the tactics to improve responsiveness to business and community needs, to expand work-based learning initiatives. And then for Illinois' goal 3, to develop that workforce development system that will use customer-centered and data practices to improve the quality of the job seeker experience and pursuing fulfilling career pathways in a manner that's equitable and accessible. The state has 3 strategies for that. The first one being the workforce system educates and supports job seekers regarding how to navigate the labor market. The workforce system interacts with job seekers in the places where they live and visit. And the workforce development system will use a data-informed approach to reduce barriers to services for job seekers who have historically faced barriers to accessing those services. So those strategies, even at the state level, are pretty general. Would you suggest that we keep those strategies and then look at local level tactics?
I'll be honest, that was hard to follow.
It was. I wish I had these
I mean,
screens to share with you
the
guys.
idea of aligning with the state's goals and strategies, as long as the strategies agree with what we're trying to accomplish, and then diving in at a local level on how we're getting those accomplished through objectives, sounds most appropriate.
So do you think the best way to get that information from our partners is to pull up on the screen what we already have and go through it bullet point by bullet point? Is it to have partners kind of just share for each strategy what tactics they use to achieve those, or yeah?
We gotta have something to follow. You pull up our previous strategies. What's gonna be hard is pulling up the previous strategies. How do they compare to the strategies that's on that piece of paper? You know, which is maybe pull up.
Well, and I think what we called strategies in the previous cycle are more like tactics.
Gotcha.
So
Which isn't bad.
it's not, and I think there's still room for them in the plan. That is what we should strive for. It just gets kind of using the same word for different things gets a little bit confusing. Let me see. I will. Let's look at our current plan, because it isn't a pretty little chart in the current plan. If you have that printed out, or if you're pulling it up on your screen, we're gonna go down to page 31. Probably have an older version printed out than I do. It's supposed to. Okay, page 32. So looking at developing collaboration among partners, our strategies or tactics that we talked about before is improving communication among partners through regular consortium committee meetings to avoid and eliminating duplication of services, collaborating on services to businesses, thereby establishing a unified approach to business services through the business service team, communication by IDES of current job orders of area businesses, continue a commitment to integration of partners by facilitating cross-training and greater awareness of other partner services and increased levels of communication utilizing the service matrix asset map and graded funding to assist with this process. Continue to utilize an asset map that is regularly updated by the consortium committee to promote an integration of services. Continue to base decisions upon data analysis. Assess the possibility for common client tracking system, allowing for referral and shared information. Offering applicants presentation of choices, consideration for referrals and career and training services. One-stop team development, case management, and utilizing virtual services and technology to bring partners from across the region to the table and facilitate communication where geography is the biggest obstacle. In the chat, we have align the goals. This is from Leah. Align the goals to the state's goals, but they need to be measurable. Gotcha. So perhaps we need to narrow the focus a bit. For example, to data that is relevant to our region without the goal being measurable. It will be difficult to know if and or to what extent we have been successful. So those 3 state goals, if we work those out to be SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound, then that would help us identify what tactics or strategies we would use to attain those goals, right? So Leah, you're saying by looking at these tactics, we might be putting the cart before the horse?
Yeah, I think, well, I think sometimes the tactics they're good, but it's kind of like, it reads a little bit like a job description. You know, if we're all doing our job right, then these tactics are taking place. So I think if we know what we want to achieve, and where we want to move the needle, and I think, you know, those goals are the state's goals are a fine outline for that. But specifically, you know, from X to Y, what do we want to see in the next bit? Then we can really put strategies in place to support that. So that's the work that we do to move the needle from X to Y. And then, you know, the tactics then kind of read like a job description after that. But yeah, I think I mean, that's my 2 cents is that, if we really want to say we want to see, you know, this, then we want to see it move from here to here, then that's what we need to do. Again, you know, I think if we want to focus on specific target sectors, if we want to focus on, you know, integration with education institutions, the development of education institutions, resources like that, I think we can narrow our focus, but it's my 2 cents worth.
Your 2 cents is highly valued. I like it. Here's where I start overthinking things, because what you're saying makes complete sense, and that is where I was at. But then we have this lovely regional planning guide that wants us to answer very specific questions, and I think that's what throws me off then, is because I'm looking at those questions and like, okay, we have to talk about the tactics that specifically answer those questions. But I think we could get there if we just focus on the goals and making them detailed goals enough that we can measure and we can see where we're going, where we want to go.
Chris, were you gonna say something?
Chris doesn't want to say anything?
Crazy, right?
That's okay, it's all right. All right, so we want to align, but we want goals that work better for our region. So cool that the state has these very broad general goals. So for us, what would we define as an example of excellence in the way that we approach to collaboration amongst all of us as partners and customer service? How do we define excellence?
How to measure excellence, how to define excellence in customer
I
service?
feel like it'd be hard to measure excellence until we know what we would
Yeah.
consider excellence. How about,
So I think it could be measured in, number of touches, number of, or, meetings, conversations, whatever, of existing partners. It could be measure of new partnerships. It could be measure of, somehow a measure of quality of the partnerships, some sort of an output of, but one that can be controlled, right?
yes, so looking at the strategies in a little bit different way, I think that does help us kind of define what excellence is. So if we're striving for excellence, excellence to me is having that customer-centered approach to service delivery. How would we measure that? Well, we would measure that by how the customer feels that the service was delivered to them.
Mhm.
If we define excellence as advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion and access, how would we measure that? We would have to look at the data to uncover areas where equity and access needs improvement, I guess.
So for that, you could look at historically what industries or what if you've got that demographic information that's taking advantage of these programs that we have to offer, and then strive to it's an educational. It's articulating it to the employers. It's ensuring that this group here, the business service team, is well informed of what's going on and is able to articulate that as well. And so, I like Leah, she had a good point there with touch points. Well, how do we measure excellence? It's how many touch points did we have? How many interactions do we have with employers? Whether it's just simply the education of this is what's available. And then through that, how many have taken advantage of the opportunities? And then looking at the possible demographics or the industries of historically who has taken advantage of it and who's utilized it. I don't like the word taking advantage, but utilize the programs versus who haven't and have we successfully increased. We still want to maintain, we don't want to decrease here who has utilized it in the past, but make sure they're still aware of it, but then a broader use of it as a whole.
Absolutely. Yes. Can you write that down?
It's recorded.
I'm gonna put it through that transcript thing.
There's a message.
Right. Absolutely. Nice. Angela, how many employers in your region are partnered with LWIA 23 concerning on-the-job training and work experience? How much funding is available for this? Or more important, how many individuals can be placed in jobs? Do you combine the education costs and then place the individuals in work experience, or does this interfere with WIA performance standards? So we do track all of that in our most recent forward report, our annual report. We do give some data about how many businesses we serve, how many OJT contracts and that kind of thing. How much funding is available for this, or more important, how many individuals can be placed in jobs? And then how do you combine the education costs and place the individuals in work experience.
So looking at economic justifications to that. How do we compare the cost of what it is for job placement to number of jobs that one we are able to place? But it's not just on the job training, incumbent worker and for experience, the retention of employees. Look at the how that has helped with the business if they're hiring on people because of its expansion, or the incumbent worker training if they've got a new product line or expansion. What is that assisted with that capital expenditure as well? And I believe we have data to that. It's just utilizing that data to show what's the job growth, what's the retention of the workforce, what's the investment, the private capital, that investment into our communities, and to strive that out to the education side as well. I mean, obviously, if there's training involved, there's investment in there as well.
Mm-hmm. So these are very measurable things that we're already measuring. It's now just writing that out in the plan and getting that benchmark so that we can identify where we want to go.
Well, and then when we think about, we're talking business level, each one of the partners, especially 1, 2, I don't know that I can speak very much for 3, but 4, we have performance measures that we're required to meet, and how we serve an individual. That may not mean that they are looking for a job, but you've also got people that come into the one stop, or the one stop is open to individuals to come in if they need assistance with a resume. Now, we'll kind of get into that when we start looking at the self-integration. I have the working copy out for myself, but that is the one-stop operator, because there should be a customer satisfaction survey that is being handed out to individuals as they enter the one-stop. So I know we'll talk a little bit more about that in later weeks, but there's also a component of student, participant, client, customer, whatever word you want to use, that we are serving, and how are we doing that?
So how do we better prepare them for the job market? How do we guide them?
And are we preparing them for the job market, or are we helping them meet their individual goals? So I'll talk from a Title II perspective. Title II adult education. So that could be someone coming that needs ESL assistance. So English is not their first language, and we're helping them learn the culture and also the language that is being spoke in our country. GED, and then also ICAPS training, which is a contextualized educational model at the federal level, and then also at the state level. That may not be that you're preparing them, I'll say preparing them for the job market, but you're giving them or helping them get either their language skills improved, or else getting them a credential, that GED, that will help them then be able to move up within the organization. So yes and no, that is somewhat helping them get a job, because we've also got transition people. But then Title I does something very different. See, we in Title II, everybody comes in. It doesn't matter if we think they're going to help our performance measures or not. Everybody comes in Title II. Everybody comes. If they don't meet the performance measure, then we have to try to figure out how to meet our performance measures so that we don't lose funding for the next year. So we serve everyone that comes to us.
So can I just say, like, I think that ties in really well to equity, because you're taking people that, right, are lacking some of those skills. They're not on the level playing field yet, right? And you're lifting them up and you're putting them on the level playing field by equipping them, right? And so I think that aligns with the state goals around equity and inclusion and some of these different things. And so you could very much look at the conversion of Title II dollars combined with y'all's resources and skills to, put these people on that level playing field, or however you want to word that goal, and then look at strategies around that. But I love that. That's great.
Overarching, Chris, would you say that what are we doing to provide tools and resources for people to be successful?
Skill set.
skill set.
I know that's a very educational word, but that's a word we use a lot. Words we use a lot together.
It's not a bad one.
No.
You're taking diligent.
Got it. Like a steel trap.
I'm hearing really great input, and I'm trying to figure out how to put that into the plan. And I think that's just where I'm kind of. So looking at a single goal and then having all these multiple measures. It's just going to be multiple measures of what excellence is, and we'll have to specify all of that out. So now, how do I put that, all of what was just said, into summary? I should have been writing down or committing to memory like Tony, because
I'm kind of hoping Debbie got it too, because.
there was so much, and then she.
There was so much, exactly, and we kind of went down a couple rabbit holes. I mean, we had to stay on the same topic. They were all great ideas, but they just weren't about the same topic. And like, I got, like you said, it was just a lot in a short time, and I got a little
That's why I
lost there.
recorded it, so I'm gonna go back and I'm going to, you don't have to repeat it, Chris, I know you have it ready to go on your tongue. Leah, you don't have to type it all out for me, I will pull it from the conversation in the recording. I think our goal is attainable, I think the measures are attainable, I think I need to have a better understanding of what we have right now to be able to set that benchmark and us to then set a goal of how we want to increase those, the count of touch points, how many businesses are served and involved in WIA programs, how we are addressing equity, customer satisfaction, all of that. I think all of it is relevant to what we're doing, of course. So then, time bound, do we want to look at assessing this on an annual basis and tracking our progress? And that's something that could be reflected in our annual board report, or do we just want to look at it 4 years out and reassess then? I feel like an annual assessment would be the best strategy.
If we have those measurable outcomes, we're truly able to put a system in place that we look at our goals, we go from our strategies to objectives, and go from our strategies to objectives. And how we are measuring or benchmarking ourselves to those goals. Do it on an annual basis. How do we need to pivot now? You know, we're doing better on number 2 than number 1. We need to shift a little bit. This is what we're seeing different in the data. So I mean, most certainly on an annual basis, I mean, it could be working towards that 4 years out, but at least revisit it on basis.
Okay.
Especially to see what, if it's strictly data mined or data driven, what is new data looking? How do we need to adjust from there to keep with the same objectives that we were trying to do, you know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, as we reached that 4-year time period?
Do you think annual would be enough, or should there be quarterly or?
Monthly, weekly? It's heavily dependent on how long it takes to, and it takes time to.
Well, and in theory, we're implementing these things already. It's what we're already doing. It's just a matter of getting them on paper, benchmarking how well we've done, and seeing what is working
It's like,
and what needs improvement.
if don't want to put onerous things on people that already have full workloads, but to revisit it as a group on an annual basis would be good, knowing that, hey, this is a 4-year plan, we're revisiting on annual internally, you know, that quarterly, that 6 months, hey, this is what's happened in the last quarter, this is what's happened in the last 6 months, maybe quarterly internally with your staff, 6 months with the business service team. Or,
Yes.
you know, to have touch points. Hey, this is what we're doing, or just to review. You know, we've had 3 businesses do this. We've had 7 individuals coming through here. We've been able to spread the word here. this is hitting goal 1, this is hitting goal 2, this is hitting goal 3. And just to note, but do that deep dive annually.
Okay. So do you think a good strategy for planning these strategies and goals would be for me to bring this back to you with each of these goals laid out as SMART goals with measures that we already have in place, and then get input of what else we could be measuring, what else you guys are already doing to measure some of these things, or new fresh ideas? Chris, why were you smiling like that?
The strategies for the strategy. I like the
Yeah.
idea of you laying out the SMART goals for us and then us adding in the strategy based upon our knowledge and based upon the customer, business, student, participant that we serve.
Okay.
And then thinking of the alignment to the state's plan
Mhm.
and what's in that we listened to you talk, which was great, but hard to follow. If we can pick out points of that and have the most updated version of it, and
Yes,
just ensure that we're aligned to it, but we're building off the specific of what's working for us, but we do have to recognize that we need to be aligned.
I like that. So in other words, I should have been more prepared today. But
I don't know about that. You seem well prepared.
Jamie, you
Well-
are fully prepared for today. I think that you also have a group of people here around the table, whether it be virtually or in person, that are throwing all kinds of things at you while you were prepared for
You're-
today. So
Yeah,
you're giving me very good perspectives and things to consider to ensure that I'm more prepared next time, and that I can make this process as easy as possible on you guys as partners, as opposed to having you listen to me read off some stuff from a draft document that's 300 pages long. Next week, I will put it to a beat, and it will be more like a rap without rhyming, maybe. That might, yeah, okay. Bullet points is helpful too. But then I make bullet points and I make sub points and then sub points of that, so I will try to keep it concise.
It might help to think of it as the goals from the state being more like initiatives, because they're not really goals. So, I mean, language matters in this game we play, so it's almost like those are initiatives, and then we're looking at what goals, measurable goals nest in under
Help
each of
us
those
Get to
initiatives.
those
Yeah.
initiatives. I
And
got
the
you.
thing that I have to say about data is I think an annual looks good as long as you have the data, because all the different data is on different data cycles. So, and then if you want to look at it more frequently, I would not recommend any more frequent than quarterly. And that look is really just to see if your strategies and tactics for achieving the goals are working, because sometimes those need to tweak.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for not saying weekly or monthly. Chad.
Yeah, come on now, Courtney.
I had to let it. No, I concur. Yeah, that deep dive annually
Courtney's like the overachiever.
and just a checking
Right?
things on a quarterly to a 6-month basis.
I like that, because I
Make
think
it
that,
internally, quarterly, make sure things are going, hit up the larger group, semi-annual, and then do a dive. And if data's not available, even if it's just a check of what are you seeing at the
Yeah.
local level, I mean, it's one thing to use data, it's another thing to have real time.
yes, exactly. I like that. I like that strategy a lot.
The real time.
And like I said, numbers and data is great, but that's not the whole story. We got to get narrative and explanation and background and all of that stuff that can't be converted to numbers. So that is what I will work on and get something out to you guys by the end of this week, so that you'll have hopefully some time to look it over and bring some thoughts to next week. Next week's week. I'm using the wrong mouse and pen. All right, let me go back to my slide deck just because I keep losing track. I know sometimes. All right, we got there. We got there. All right, one of the last things in chapter 3 in the guide that I don't have open anymore says, describe how a workforce equity lens is or will be incorporated into the implementation of regional workforce education and economic development strategies. I just wanted you guys to see what the definition of workforce equity lens is, and it's an ongoing process for analyzing or diagnosing the impact of the design and implementation of policies on underserved and marginalized individuals and groups, and to identify potentially eliminate barriers. And I think that is almost exactly what Courtney just said a bit ago about how we measure equity, what we're looking at, and what Chris was referencing, and that we serve everyone who has obstacles and barriers to success. We look at their individual story, their own case, what they're living with, what their obstacles are, and assess how we can address those very specific barriers. How do we help them overcome those barriers and get them to where they are self-sufficient and they are reaching success in their career pathways? So equity is really embedded in everything that for sure Title I does, for sure Title II does. I'm pretty sure Title III, definitely Title IV, and I would guarantee that any of our partners who serve individuals are using some sort of equity lens as well. And I think we can apply it to the businesses that we serve too. We can look at what, like Courtney said, what sectors are using our services versus who's not, and why are they not using our services, who needs them, and specifying our messaging and having that strategic targeted outreach. So I think there's probably already some language in our previous cycle that I can revisit and have you guys take a look at. I feel like that's still going to apply, which I think it will, and then take your input on anything else workforce equity related. Wrong mouse again, sorry. So just to give you a little timeline, we already did our kickoff meetings in December, so we're in what I'm calling Planuary. So in January, we're developing our regional plan with you all, the team. February, the draft of the regional plan has to be posted for public comment. That deadline is February 14th, and that has to be out for public comment for 30 days. So that would put us at March 14th, reviewing public comment and making adjustments to the plan as needed. And then our goal is to have this submitted to our local workforce innovation board by our March board meeting, which is the 18th. And once that is approved by our board, we submit to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. They look at it, tell us to fix some things. We go back and forth until all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And then the plan goes into effect July 1st, 2024. So for the meetings, we're meeting every week this month. The next meeting is next Wednesday, the 10th. It will be from 1 to 3 o'clock. You can come to the CEFS main office on 1805 South Banker, where we're at now, or you can join virtually as you did before. I request that you register through that SurveyMonkey link so that I will still send out calendar invites to everyone on the team. But if there's anyone who is not on my list, if they want to join, have them register so then I can get their contact information and get them on the list. And even if you're already on the list, I would appreciate it if you do register there, so it just keeps everything. I can have this nice little exported data Excel spreadsheet and be done with it instead of copying and pasting.
Register for each meeting.
Yes, you can select what meetings you will be in person versus what meetings will be virtual. Because I didn't know, I thought maybe we would have 150 people want to attend here in person, and I thought I might have to cut some people off. We had a smaller turnout, but that's okay. We've got a decent turnout online. With the exception of the 17th, all of the in-person meetings will be here at SEVS. On the 17th, this room is not available, so we will be meeting at the Cluthy Center in Effingham. I think room 105, but there will be signs available. So if you decide to join us in person on the 17th, go to the Cluthy Center and follow the signs. 1 to 3. All of the rest of them are 1 to 3. Today was a weird one. I don't remember why. There was some method to my madness, probably. Again, just to highlight the regional planning resources, you can go to lwa23.net/regional-plan. I will try to keep that as updated as possible. And if there's anything that you would like to see on that site that is not available, let me know. But also that registration, that SurveyMonkey link is there. The data packet, additional data that I pulled that's pertinent. I will get the new Illinois Unified State Plan draft on there shortly. It's all there. So I'm Jamie Porta-Jowie with LWIA 23 at Lakeland. You can contact me there or here. And because we're grant funded and I have to remember that we are a proud partner of the American Jobs Center Network and the Illinois WorkNet Center. Any questions, concerns, ideas? What else do you have to contribute to this week's session of plan development?
I know we covered a lot. There's great discussion today, but we are on a tight schedule week by week. Is there something that you really wanted to cover today? We got about a half hour. Is there something that you wanted to cover that you needed? You're giving us more input and gonna make it easier for us to continue the discussion next week, but we're falling too far behind. Is there something that you really need to discuss that we can narrow down on today?
I think I hit all the things I wanted to hit. I didn't want to take up the whole 2 hours. I think I don't even get snacks, so I don't think that's fair. Risa, it looks like you have your hand raised. So what idea do you have?
Well, I mean, I'm in total agreement with the alignment with the state goals and all the comments that were on that topic. I guess my only concern is, and maybe we be thinking about, or you or whoever, our method of measurement of the goals and identifying that in the plan and updating it, because one method of measurement may not work consistently throughout the course of the plan. I don't know. It's so hard to do that. So getting everybody on the same page, communicating that with all the partners might be a beneficial thing to consider. That was my thought.
That is a great thought. I like it. And as I work to get these goals into more of that SMART format and have an idea of measurements, that is what your homework is going to be. When I send out, okay, based on today's discussion and looking at these Illinois plans, goals, here are our plans, and listed out with the measurements, your input on, does that make sense? Do you think that's something that can be measured every year? Are there additional ways to measure that I have missed or I'm not thinking of? That would be your homework, I guess, to prepare for next meeting. Is the agenda is not posted yet, but it will be that we kind of reconvene on chapter 3, get your input, and then start looking at what will be chapter 2. So we're going to go back a bit. And as we look at chapter 2, that's going to help with some of the measurement questions as well. So I want to, in order to have structure of what to expect for each meeting, yes, I kind of divided up by the chapters. This is what chapter we're going to look at here on this date and that date and that date. But the door's not closed on a chapter just because that's not the week that we were going to talk about it. So as we have further discussion regarding chapter 2, which is service integration, I think we'll have even more ideas for measurements or benchmarks, additional goals, additional tactics or ideas that could be added to chapter 3. But we'll at least have a pretty good framework from that. And then chapter 2, I think we will have some more homework for you guys as well. Our one-stop operator consortium is working on a self-assessment. I think the majority of that self-assessment really applies to the one-stop center and our title partners that provide services through that center. But there's some questions on that assessment that they'll need input from external partners as well. So either that will be in the discussion next week, so I encourage you to read through chapter 2 and kind of have some ideas of what to expect. And that's chapter 2 in the regional planning guide that's on our website. If you'd like, you can also look at our current regional plan, but focus on the questions of the chapter 2 guide and be ready for discussion on that. Chris, do you have an idea of exactly what you need from that discussion, or do you need something prior to that discussion?
What I need to do is get our title partners together and start working through this document.
Okay.
We have done a little bit on it, but there is a lot of information in here, and I am not at the one stop other than an occasional visit to the one stop. So it would really be our Title I, which would be Kelly. I don't know if Kelly is there today. And also Title III, which would be Casey. And I think maybe Casey is on the call. And then also Carolyn with Title IV. So really kind of walking through this step by step, because again, there's a lot of information in here, like 40 pages of questions. And what are we doing and what could we do better? The thing I have to remember when I go through this, because I feel like it can be very overwhelming if you can't already see that look on my face of that many pages of questions. This isn't about finding something that we're doing wrong. It is about looking at what we're doing and how do we do it better, or are we doing it really, really well and we need to concentrate on another area. So that's really, I don't know that I answered your question, Jamie.
That you're working on getting an answer to my question is what it sounds like. After you convene with your consortium members, and I've looked through that assessment, it is massive. I think most of it, your consortium will be able to get through, but there's just a couple points that you may want some information from our partners here on this team. So if there's any homework, you will get it well in advance, but it may just end up being a smaller discussion next week pertaining to that service integration assessment specifically. And we'll talk about service integration in general for that whole chapter 2 discussion. So look out for SMART goals with measures, benchmarks, and all of that by the end of the week. And review chapter 2 of the regional planning guide to kind of start to have an idea of what we will discuss next week. And then just keep an eye out in case Chris and her consortium come up with some hard facts of this is what we need from you before the discussion, and be prepared as necessary, or just be pleasantly surprised to come into a little sidebar conversation about that self-assessment that's going to influence our chapter 2 discussion anyway. How's that sound? All right. Goals, prepare for chapter 2, and look out for any other random stuff that gets thrown out there. And I will update the Illinois draft on our website for the newest draft. If you have any questions, concerns, epiphanies, ideas later on, please reach out to me in whatever manner is easiest for you. You can send me something in the mail. You can send me an email. You can come to my office, whatever works for you. Carrier pigeon. I would be down to get a carrier pigeon message. I think that would be really cool. Thank you guys so much for your input and your time. I greatly appreciate it. Chris, you're very little on my screen, so I don't know what you're showing me, but you have a carrier pigeon. Oh, man. I got my carrier pigeon. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day. Happy New Year. And thank you for a great start to January.
Thanks, Jane.
Thanks, guys.